morning, guys. So the other day for discrete, we started working with analyzing pivotal players, right? Whenever we're talking about pivotal players, we're talking about the players that bring home the win, if we're gonna say it that way, right? The people that are essential in winning and getting a winning outcome. So when we're thinking about elections, we're thinking about the people that help others win elections, right? If we're talking about sports, we're talking about not the person that scores the most points, we're talking about the person that helps bring the win. Because the person can score the most points, but if the team loses, what's the point? Same idea with pivotal players. They're not the people that bring in the most points, but they are the people that help win it all. And so the other day we said that we were gonna start analyzing pivotal players and their worth. That's what we're gonna be doing today. We're gonna be analyzing something that I know you've never heard of, called the Shapley-Shubik. Called the Shapley-Shubik Power Index, right? And again, it sounds extremely complicated, guys. It's just the name that we give something. And what the Shapley-Shubik Power Index is, it's a way for us to gauge the worth of a player in regards to what they bring to be able to win in a voting system, right? So the Shapley-Shubik Power Index is gonna measure how valuable a pivotal player is for every single sequence, right? In regards to them being pivotal players. We're gonna see how important they actually are. That's all it is. It just measures how valuable each player is in regards to being a pivotal player, right? So the other day we started with analyzing pivotal players. Today we're gonna see how we can turn that into being able to see their worth via numbers, right? And so again, that's the Shapley-Shubik Index. What we're gonna start with here, we're gonna start with this voting sequence, right? Voting system of 20. And then they're gonna have the values of 9, 13, and 6, right? Those are gonna be the values that we give each of them. And here, I'll put it in a different color just so you guys can actually focus on it. So again, that's our voting sequence. And what we did the other day, we analyzed it, right? We know that the first number that shows up is our quota. That's how much is needed to win. So in this case, we need 20 points to win, right? And then everything else that follows is the value, the points that each player brings. So in order, player 1 brings 9 points, player 2 brings 13 points, player 3 brings 6 points, right? So this would be our P1. This would be our P2, this would be our P3. And then again, if there were more numbers, it'd be P4, P5, and so on and so on, right? So in order for us to start analyzing the Shapley-Shubik Power Index of each player, we need to figure out in a given number of sequences who the pivotal player is gonna be. And since there are 3 players, I'm gonna end up actually figuring out all the different ways we can arrange them, right? So all the different ways we can arrange them, it's going to end up looking like this. So it would be P1, P2, P3, right? And again, all this is going to involve switching the order. So we have P1, P2, P3. Then we're going to end up having P1, P3, P2. And all I'm doing, I'm literally just showing all the possible ways that all these players can be arranged, right? So we did P1, P2, P3, P1, P3, P2. There's no other way we can arrange it with the first player. So now we go to the second player, P2, P1, P3. Let's do it here. Then it's going to end up being P2, P3, and P1. And then we did the 2s. Now let's go to the 3s, right? P3, P1, and P2. And then the last one's going to end up being P3, P2, and P1. And again, all this represents, if I want to see how valuable each player is, then I need to know all the different ways we can arrange them, right? So what I'm going to want to do for every single one of these sequences, I'm going to want to figure out who the pivotal player is in each of these sequences, right? By going in order, just the way we did the other day in class, right? And so let's start going with this, right? Let's start with the first one. We wanted to figure out the pivotal player, and we have to go in order. So in order for you to be a pivotal player, you need to be able to reach 20 points, right? By going in this order. So the first one would be player 1. Player 1 brings 9 points, right? That's not enough to win, so he can't be the pivotal player. Next would be player 2. Player 2 brings 13 points. So we see that 9 plus 13 gives us 22. We needed 20, we got 22 already. So player 2 here, he was the pivotal player because he helped us win, right? Let's look at the next one. Player 1 brings 9 points again, right? So we know he can't be the pivotal player. Player 3 brings 6 points. So 9 plus 6 gives us 15. We have 15, we need 20, not enough to win. So we know player 3 can't be the pivotal. Add on player 2 gives us 13. 15 plus 13 gives us 28. 28 is more than 20, so we know that player 2, again, pivotal player, right? And we're just working through each of these guys over here. Start with player 2. Player 2 gives us 13, not enough to win. Add on player 1 next, which is 9. 13 plus 9 gives us 22. We know 22 is higher than 20. Player 1 in this case was pivotal, right? He helped us win. Over here, start with player 2 again. Player 2 is 13. Player 3 over here. Oh, before that, we know player 2 wasn't enough to win. Next is player 3 with his 6 points. 13 plus 6 gives us 19. Not enough. Add on player 1 with his 9. Gives us 28 points. So plenty of points to win. We just needed 20. So we know again, player 1 is our pivotal player, right? Over here next. Start with player 3. Player 3 had 6. 6 is not enough to win. Add on player 1 now, right? Player 1 gives us 9. 9 plus 6 is 15. Not enough to win, guys, because again, we need 20. Add on player 2 now with 13. Gives us 28 points again. 28 points, plenty to win. We know player 2, our pivotal player. And now the last one. We have player 3. Player 3 gives us 6. Not enough. Add on player 2. Player 2 gives us 13. 13 plus 6 is 19. Again, 19, not enough to win, right? So now we got to go to player 1. Player 1 gives us 9. 19 plus 9, 28 again. So we know that player 1 in this case was pivotal, right? So all we did is exactly what we did in class the other day, right? We figured out who the pivotal players were in every single sequence, right? The only difference is now we just did it for the same people, the same amount of points, but just all different ways to figure that out, right? And once we have that, that's the hardest part. Once we have this, figuring out the Shapley-Shubik power index for each person, it's actually very simple, very, very simple. And so first I'm gonna write down all of this, and then I'm gonna show you this in the table. So when we had this voting system where we needed 20 points to win, if player 1 brought 9, player 2 brought 13, player 3 brought 6, we know that player 2, so let's see it this way. We have player 1, we have player 2, we have player 3. Actually, let me make it smaller just so it's not all on top of each other. And let me do a different color as well, guys. So we have player 1, we have player 2, and we have player 3. And then I'm going to show you how we're going to use this, right? So for player 1, we see it. How many times? Let's count how many times player 1 was pivotal. Not here, not here. So once, twice, 3 times. Player 1 was pivotal 3 times. Player 2, 1, 2, 3 times as well. So all we just did was counted how many times each player was pivotal. Player 1 was pivotal once, twice, 3 times. Player 2, once, twice, 3 times. Player 3, none, 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 none. 0. So we see, when we're looking at this, player 1 and player 2 are just as pivotal as each other. They're the 2 most important players. The least important player in this case would be player 3. It's not to say that we can win without player 3. It's just in terms of being pivotal, in terms of bringing it home for the win, player 3 never did that. And so I'm going to erase all this now, and I'm going to show you how we actually create a table to show us our Shapley-Shubik power index, right? And I'm going to show you this through percentages, right? I'm going to show you how valuable each player is through percentages and how to calculate them. So I'm going to show you a table with this, right? And the table is just going to have very basic information. We're going to have a table of the 3 players, right? And then we're going to have 3 columns, right? The first one's going to be number of times pivotal. Number of times pivotal. How many times was each person pivotal? And then the other one is going to be literally our Shapley-Shubik power index, right? The value that each one has. Shapley-Shubik power index. And so this is going to be player 1, player 2, player 3. Right? And so number of times pivotal, we already know. Player 1 was pivotal 3 times. Player 2 was pivotal 3 times. Player 3 was pivotal 0 times. The way that we figure out now the Shapley-Shubik power index, it's just by dividing, guys, and changing it to a percentage. So altogether, we had 3 plus 0. We had 6 total sequences, right? It's what we erased before. We had 6 total ways that we figured out, all 6 different outcomes. That 6 is going to help us because in order to figure out the power index, we need to know how many times we ran this system, right? How many times we analyzed the sequences? We analyzed 6 sequences. To figure out the power index for player 1, all you have to do would be 3 divided by the total. 3 divided by 6 gives us 0.5. And now what we want to do is we want to change that 0.5 to a percent, right? So the way that you change it to a percent would be, here, let me just write, the way you would actually do it, let me put it over here. We would do 0.5 times 100 would end up giving us 50%. So if we're looking at the Shapley-Shubik power index of player 1, it would end up being 50%, right? Because they won 3 out of 6, they won half the time. Same thing over here for player 2, we would end up doing 3 out of 6, gives us 0.5. And then to change it to a percent, same thing, 0.5 times 100 gives us 50%. Right? So each of them were equally important, 50%, 50%. Player 3 is the easiest. Out of 6 times, he won 0 times 0 out of 6. So it would be 0, which would be 0%. Never won anything, right? And so those percentages, that's what represents our Shapley-Shubik power index. Sometimes you'll see it as fractions, sometimes you'll see it as decimals, sometimes you'll see it as percents. All 3 are good. It's just the easiest way to actually analyze these numbers is by percentages, right? So whenever you divide, just multiply it by 100, gives us our percent, right? And so we see pivotal player was, his Shapley-Shubik power index would be 50%. Player 2 would be 50%. Player 3 would be 0%. And that just shows us how important each player is, right? I want to do one more just with practice of calculating the power indexes, right? And again, it's nothing complicated at all, guys, right? So in this case, I'm going to want to end up doing 4 players, right? 4 different players for you guys to be able to see that it's not always 3. So we're going to have player 1. Right? We're going to have player 1. We're going to have player 2. We're going to have player 3. And we're going to have player 4, right? And from this, we're going to have number of times pivotal, which I'll give to you guys, right? But it's one of those situations you would be able to calculate like we did before, right? And then we're going to have the Shapley-Shubik power index, what we just calculated, right? Those percents, which again, nothing complicated as well. So for each of these, I'm going to tell you that when it came to player 1, he was pivotal 4 times. Player 2 was pivotal 5 times. Player 3 was pivotal 9 times. Player 4 was pivotal 2 times. So without even starting, we already know the most valuable player when it came to helping us win was player 3, right? It was the most times. In order for us to figure out the power index, first we need to know how many total outcomes we had, right? How many different times did we go? So what you would do is you would add them up. So we know that 4 plus 5 plus 9 plus 2 gives us 20, right? So 20 is that number that we're going to be dividing by. That's when he's going to tell us what is it that we're going to be dividing each of these numbers by to figure out our power index, right? So starting with player 1, exactly what we did before, calculating the percentages. We know that he won 4. He was pivotal 4 out of 20 times, right? 20 is the total. So 4 divided by 20 is going to end up giving us 0.2. Sorry, guys. It's going to give us 0.2. So the way you change 0.2 to a percentage would be 0.2 times 100, which gives us 20%. So that 20% right there, that would be our power index for player 1. Same thing right now, player 2, he was pivotal 5 out of 20 times. 5 divided by 20 is going to give us 0.25. 0.25 times 100 gives us 25%. So player 2 was pivotal 25% of the time. Player 3, we're going to do 9 divided by 20, which gives us 0.45. 0.45 times 100 gives us 45%. Just like we said. Most valuable player, right? Player 4, he was pivotal only 2 times out of the 20 that we went. 2 divided by 20 gives us 0.1. 0.1 times 100 gives us 10%. And so when we look at the percentages all make sense, right? Because the most valuable player was player 3 with 9. He had the highest percent. He was pivotal 45% of the time. The next highest was 5. Next highest, he was valuable 25% of the time. Then was 4, player 1. He was pivotal 20% of the time. And the least pivotal player was player 4. He was pivotal only 10% of the time. Again, that's what the Shapley-Shubik power index is for. It's to see how pivotal a player is in all the given sequences that we have, right? Again, it's a good way for us to just be able to see how important they are to being able to be helping teams pivot for the win. Again, any questions, guys, feel free to ask. Take care.